Hello, welcome in. If you're here listening to this podcast, that means you're destined for something great, and we both know it to be true. So without further ado, welcome to the Dark Matter Podcast. Hey y'all, welcome back to the podcast. Dev here. And today I'm sharing something super special with you all. So I'm actually sharing an episode from my girlfriend's podcast where she interviewed me on her podcast, The Feminine Initiate. And we talked about one of the many techniques that she can perform as a certified mindset practitioner. She's an NLP certified practitioner. She also can do hypnosis. There's so many things, the list goes on. With this, I wanted to share this episode because, again, I always feel like these episodes are super timely. Now, she'll explain it as you get into the episode, but most of you know, for the long-time listeners, that there was a period of time a little while ago where I was feeling that internal pull. Part of me wanted to go one way, the other part of me wanted to go the other way. And so, most of us nowadays, we just brute force it, or we just, try to just work through it as best as we can. But another technique that you can do is called parts integration. And what this does is it allows you to talk to your subconscious mind to understand why there is the resistance and to be able to come to terms with it, to make peace with it, to be able to move forward without the resistance and those blocks. And so I just felt like it was such a powerful episode, and it would be a genuine disservice to not share the episode with you all. So I'm going to go ahead and plug that in. There will be links down below as well if you'd like to learn more about it or even have a session yourself. So thank you so much. As always, if you haven't, make sure you're liking, subscribing, and sharing the show. I really appreciate that. So let's dive into the episode. And as always, y'all, I'll catch you on the next one.
Welcome to the Feminine Initiate podcast. I'm your host, Jess West. Can you recall a time when you had to make a decision, but you felt completely torn? Part of you wanted to answer one way or go one way, and part of you wanted to do the opposite. Or maybe have you experienced a time when you knew you wanted to do something, but you kept self-sabotaging yourself? You were caught in this loop of self-sabotage. It's like you knew exactly what you needed to do, but you couldn't seem to get yourself to do it. This might be a past experience, or it might even be something that you're experiencing right now. In either case, this episode is for you because these are indicators that you might have a parts conflict. And I'm going to share one of my absolute favorite NLP techniques known as parts integration. I'm going to share what it is, how to do it. And I have Dev here on the podcast today to share his experience with parts integration when he was facing a big life and career decision earlier this year. But before I get into his story and allow him to introduce himself, I just want to cover the basics of what is parts integration. So first, let's talk about what is a part. This is based on internal family systems in psychology, which states that we all have these different parts within us that are almost like their own separate personalities. They have their own intentions, even their own names. And these were formed in our early childhood. From the ages of 0 to 7, we were basically like giant tape recorders, and everything was seeping into our subconscious mind and forming our basis of reality. And oftentimes what happens with parts conflict is if a negative situation happened in our early childhood that triggered a nervous system response, a stress response, or caused us to want to build up a wall of protection. For example, let's say that you had put complete faith and trust in maybe a family member or a good friend, and that trust was broken. As a child, part of you could have ended up creating a wall and told yourself that you can't trust anybody. And then we go on and we grow up, and later in adulthood, when we have an intimate relationship and a partner that we really want to build a strong relationship with and have that trust, we can find ourselves being blocked. We really want to be able to have this beautiful relationship with them, but part of us just cannot seem to trust them. This is when that conflicting part in childhood that was created to protect you could end up really becoming a disservice to you later in life. And so we have many of these parts that could end up being conflicting whenever we want to reach new heights in our adulthood. So, what do we do in a parts integration session? We bring both parts of ourselves to the table, so to speak. So, if I'm going to continue this example of having built up a wall where you can't trust anybody. So, if you are in a relationship where you really want to trust someone, you really want to build that loving relationship, then it can look like bringing both of those parts to the table. The part of you that really wants this relationship, and the part of you that just cannot seem to trust anybody. In a parts integration session, we are creating a space where we can actually communicate with both of those parts. We give them the space and almost, I'm going to say, the respect to really hear what they have to say and give them the understanding that they have been longing for. Ultimately, every part of us and everything in our body, because we are a living being, and everything that is living has really one goal, and that is survival. And so every single thing within us, every single part, is rooting for our survival, really just wants to protect us. And that is the same thing for every single part, even though we feel like it is not serving us. When we can really communicate with that part and get to understand its highest intention for us, it is most often or always rooted in love, rooted in our greatest benefit. And when we can come from that state of understanding, have both of these parts really understand one another, we can integrate them, come back to a place of wholeness, feel so aligned, and be better able to move forward. And so that is essentially the end result of a parts integration, is to really take these two conflicting parts that we have within us, reintegrate them, recognize that they're both rooting for you, for your ultimate happiness. And once we have resolved that internal conflict and feel realigned, then we can make so much better decisions moving forward. Lastly, let me tell you how we do it specifically. When I do sessions for parts integration, and this is how I learned how to do it through the Yes Apply method, we use both of our hands to be able to elicit these parts within us. One of them will come on the right hand, the other part will come on the left hand, and then we will name them, asking each hand, we're going to take our turns with communicating with them, asking them what their name is and what their highest intent is. And we're going to open up this beautiful dialogue between these two parts of ourselves, or even more if there's potentially more parts involved. And through this dialogue, we create understanding. And as we go through the session, as you continue to converse between these two parts, you will start to notice that there are a lot of commonalities. And I know this is exactly what Devin has experienced. So now that I kind of gave a general overview of what part integration is, I'd love, Dev, for you to be able to share your experience with us. And so maybe can you share what it was that you were experiencing, what the conflict was that you were experiencing prior to doing the parts integration, and then what your experience was like afterwards?
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, thank you for having me on to share the experience. I just want to share some context. So I'll take you back to 2022. This is when I started my first online business, and this was an online coaching business where I helped coaches start in the online space. And I co-founded that business with a good friend of mine. We'd known each other for a very long time from my previous career. And so it was incredible being able to work with him at this capacity. And doing this, I spent from 2022 to the end of last year doing this, and it was incredible. We generated multiple six figures. We had a ton of fantastic client results. And on top of that, I mean, I grew personally. I learned so much about the online space. I mean, I learned so much about business, and it was just such an incredible experience. And I feel like near the end of it, I started to get that feeling of I'm meant for more. And there was this part of me that felt like I wasn't using my fullest potential. I kind of just got put into this opportunity. I learned as much as I could, but I wasn't really able to take it forward the way that I knew I could or the way that I wanted to. And so it just started causing a little bit of friction within me. And so when I was sharing that with you, you had suggested, hey, why don't we try this practice called parts integration, where we can talk to, the two parts of you? Because that's really what was happening. There was a division, it felt like, within me, where one side of me was like, well, I just spent the last few years building this with my friend, but then there's this other part of me that feels like I'm ready to move forward and start something of my own. And, we kind of got into it. You had asked me, you had told me that you're speaking to my subconscious mind. And so we had named the two parts, the part of me that wanted to stay, and then the part of me that was ready to move forward. And we just called the part that wanted to stay, of course, just the business name. And then the other part, the part of me that wanted to leave, you would ask my subconscious mind to pick a name, and the name that was chosen by my subconscious was the bear. And this was such a powerful name to me. And I'm not sure why, but there was so much emotion that came from, that. And after doing the practice, I mean, it went on for sometime you would ask some questions. And by the end of it, I realized that both of these parts were trying to do the same thing, which was to help me with my growth and my evolution. And I just couldn't see it at the time, but everything was kind of being laid out for me. And once we were done the session, it made me feel like I had a better understanding as to why there was a part of me that wanted to stay and why there was a part of me that wanted to leave. And I came to the conclusion that both of the things led to my continued evolution. And so once I knew that, once I felt like both could work and both were for my highest good, I allowed the situation to develop. And I think it was about 90 days after we had actually had the session where everything just kind of came to me.
Yeah, I love that you're hitting on this because that's the thing. When there is no more conflict, when we bring these two parts, when we integrate them, recognizing that they're both almost wanting the same thing. So, what is there when there's no more conflict? There's alignment, there's peace. And then from that state, then you can make the next best decision for you. At that point, it's really just what do you want? What do you want? Like, that is the question. It's no longer I want this, but I can't. It's no longer having that conflict. It's really like I am free to be able to go in the direction that I want. Now, having said this, it obviously wasn't, we did the parts integration and the next day you left your business and started off on your own. So can you share kind of what unfolded after that? And then at what point did you ultimately leave the business and then start what we have going on today?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I think, when I had the internal freedom, it felt like the external circumstances really shifted in my favor. And so it would have been another 90 days after our session where things just really stumbled into my lap. I was put in a position where I had to learn a new platform. And this platform ended up being the thing that allowed us to create what we now know as Just Automate. So the software that we created So incredible. So it was about 90 days after our session. Things just divinely fell the way that they were supposed to. And I was able to, leave that opportunity in good graces, find the thing that was going to allow me to create my next opportunity. And now we have just automate. And it's incredible, because I had the clarity, the freedom, the alignment, and then things just really worked out.
I love this so much. And I mean, I could be biased because obviously it's part of our business together too, but it's just so beautiful. And it really demonstrates that when we are in that state of alignment, there are opportunities all around us, things that the conflict that we have internally may be actually preventing us from just being able to see it. And when you do come from that state of alignment, that different energy, we attract more aligned opportunities to us. And so it's such a beautiful depiction of that. So thank you so much for sharing your experience with all of us. And now I want to share how you, the listener, can do a parts integration session on yourself. So if you are feeling like you have a conflict within yourself, that part of you wants to go one way, part of you wants to go another way, you have such a hard time making this decision, then you can take out a sheet of paper and I want you to draw a line across the middle of the page. And then allow yourself to take a few deep breaths in and really ground yourself into the moment. This is a practice where you want to speak to your subconscious mind, not just on the conscious level where it feels like you're just doing stuff on the surface level. You really want to feel the integration within your whole body. And so allow yourself to ground and really get heart centered and then begin to elicit your parts. And so if you have two parts, this is why we're dividing it in the middle. If you have three parts, then you can divide the page in three. And I want you to name each of your parts. And so ask them one at a time to come forth, ask them what their name is, write their name at the top of their section on the page. And once you have that, you're going to speak to each of these parts at their own time. And so ask the first part on the left side of the page, what is your highest intention for me? And if you're speaking to your subconscious mind, this should just be really clear and direct, maybe one or two words. It's not very lengthy storytelling sentences. The subconscious mind is really quick and to the point. It's not a conversational style, really elaborate. And so look for those quick answers, the first thing that comes to your mind, and write that down. And then keep asking. So, for example, I'm going to go back to the example that I gave right at the beginning. If you have a part that has a difficulty trusting others, it would be something like, what is your highest intention? Maybe something like protection would come up. And then you would say, protection for what highest purpose? And maybe safety would come up. Okay, safety for what higher purpose? And maybe it would be for shelter. I don't know. I'm just making it up. But you're going to keep going at that. Whatever answer you get, continue going. What you're going to find is maybe you are going to start to come up with repetitive words, and that is totally okay. This is why we're dealing with the subconscious mind. We don't want your conscious mind to be like, no, this is incorrect. And so once you start to see that maybe after shelter, for what higher purpose? Safety came back up again. Okay, I'm starting to see a lot of repetitive words. Now you can switch to the next part. And so you want to ask the other part of you. In this case, it would be the part of you that wants a loving, trusting, intimate relationship with your partner. And so ask it, what is your highest intention? And you continue to go that way. What you'll end up finding is that they will have a lot of commonalities together. Once you have enough of those commonalities, then you can start chunking them together. For example, if you're seeing safety many times, so you can ask the one part, okay, safety for what higher purpose, and see what comes up. As you continue doing this, you're going to start to feel that integration happening. You're going to start to recognize that these two parts are both for my ultimate safety, my ultimate protection, my ultimate enjoyment of life, my ultimate love, whatever it is, you're going to start to see similarities. And when you do, then you can invite these two parts together to integrate. And it really resolves that conflict within yourself when you recognize that, wow, these two conflicting parts actually want the same thing for me. So if we can see eye to eye, if we can get into agreement, I can get back into alignment, and then I get to do what it is that I want and not feel that resistance. And so decisions can come so much easier for me. And again, to go back to Devin's fabulous example, when you are in alignment, so much more opportunity opens up for you. And so if you're hearing yourself in what I'm saying and you feel like you could be facing a parts conflict right now, then you can go ahead and try that exercise. I will say, however, it is always best to do it with someone else, someone who is experienced in facilitating a parts integration, such as myself. The reason being is because, again, we are speaking to the unconscious mind. And so we really want to be able to connect with that unconscious. And so if you would like someone to really be able to guide you, to be able to get into that state of mind, to really be able to feel grounded and feel safe right now, then it could be best to do it with someone who can help you through it and who can help you eliminate the distraction. Because when you're writing it down yourself and you're trying to speak to your unconscious mind, but then consciously you're trying to write it, it could make the technique a little more difficult for you. Also, sometimes we could feel like we have a parts conflict. Part of us wants to do this, part of us wants to do this, but there could be something else at play. And by sharing with someone who's knowledgeable in the field, they may be able to help you recognize that you actually have a limiting belief, and there are different, more suited techniques to really be able to resolve that limiting belief, or to be able to release that fear that a parts conflict may not work, even if that's what we think that it is right now. And so being able to talk it out with someone is really beneficial. And lastly, the way that I facilitate a parts integration, which was taught to me through the Yes Apply method, is I will invite you to use your hands. So instead of taking pen to paper, you can use your hands to elicit both of your parts as I guide you through the process. So you can actually be the full embodiment, really speaking to your subconscious mind, no distractions. You can be fully engaged into the practice. And as you use your hands, one of my favorite parts, and this might sound woo-woo, and don't worry, I thought it was woo-woo before I actually tried a parts integration too. But when you use your hands, as you continue this open dialogue with both parts, you'll actually find that your hands naturally gravitate towards each other until they touch and come one on top of the other. And that's when you know that the integration has occurred and it's truly a full body experience. And so this is when you can really feel it within yourself, feel that alignment, as opposed to perhaps only being at a conscious level, writing it down on a piece of paper. And so you can choose to do it yourself, but if you want a full embodied experience, then I have 60 to 90-minute sessions available to be able to do a parts integration with you, and also to be able to do any other subconscious practice or technique that you may be needing right now. If you're interested in a one-on-one session with me, I've included the link in the show notes below so that you could go and book a session. I hope this resonated with you today. And thank you so much again, Devin, for coming on and sharing your experience with us. I hope you all have a fantastic week. And until next time, be empowered. Thanks for joining me. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to hit subscribe so that you never miss an episode. And I'll see you next time.